The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway as Marcus crouched beside his Toyota Camry, inspecting what he thought was a loose heat shield. His fingers brushed against something that definitely wasn't part of the car's original equipment, a small black box with a magnetic base, tucked carefully behind the rear wheel well. Marcus pulled it free, turning the device over in his hands. The little LED light blinked once, then went dark. His mechanical engineering degree made the device's purpose immediately clear. A GPS tracker, probably one of those cheap models you could order online for under $100. His first thought was teenagers playing pranks, or maybe he'd somehow gotten tangled up in someone else's drama by parking in the wrong place. He stood up, brushing the dirt from his jeans, and walked into the house. The smell of dinner cooking greeted him, and he found his wife Emma in the kitchen chopping vegetables with unusual intensity. "Hey, babe," Marcus said casually, holding up the device. "Found something weird under the car. Some kind of tracker. You know anything about this?" Emma's knife slipped, barely missing her finger. Her face went pale for just a fraction of a second before she forced a laugh. "A tracker? That's bizarre. Probably some prank, right? Kids these days." Marcus studied her face. They'd been married for 8 years, and he knew her tells. The way she couldn't quite meet his eyes. The slight tremor in her voice. The sudden interest in the carrots that didn't need quite that much attention. "Yeah, probably," he said slowly. Then an idea struck him. The kind of mischievous thought that made his friends call him the king of petty revenge back in college. "You know what? I'm going to mail this thing on a little trip. Whoever's tracking me is going to think I drove to Canada." Emma's laugh sounded forced. That's actually pretty funny. When are you going to do it?" "Tomorrow. I've got that package going out to my college buddy Derek in Vancouver anyway. I'll just toss this in the box." Marcus pocketed the tracker and moved to kiss her cheek. She turned her head at the last second, and his lips caught the corner of her mouth. Another tell. That night, Marcus lay awake long after Emma had fallen asleep beside him. Her phone buzzed twice on the nightstand, unusual for 2 a.m. He didn't look, but he didn't need to. Pieces were falling into place: the late nights at yoga class, the new lingerie that never seemed to make an appearance at home, the way she'd become increasingly interested in his schedule. The next morning, Marcus made a show of packaging up the tracker with Derek's vinyl records. He'd already texted his friend. "Random favor, can you take this package on a road trip for a few days?" "I'll explain later. It's harmless, I promise." Derek, always up for chaos, had responded with a thumbs up and a devil emoji. At the post office, Marcus handed over the package and got his receipt. Estimated delivery 5 to 7 business days. He took a photo of the receipt and felt a strange mixture of emotions. Curiosity, definitely, but also a growing dread about what he might discover. Emma seemed distracted that evening, checking her phone constantly. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked, knowing full well it wasn't. "Fine, just work stuff. Some project deadlines." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Marcus nodded and opened his laptop, pretending to review some engineering specs while actually researching divorce attorneys in their county. He hoped he was wrong. He hoped there was some innocent explanation for the tracker, for Emma's behavior, for the gut feeling that had been growing stronger over the past few months. But Marcus had always been a realist. And realists prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The tracker, he knew, would soon begin its journey north, and when it did, he suspected his marriage might begin its journey toward the truth, whatever that truth might be. 3 days later, the tracking began in earnest. Marcus knew because Emma's behavior shifted dramatically. She'd become jumpy, obsessively checking her phone every few minutes, her brow furrowed in confusion that she poorly tried to hide. "You okay?" Marcus asked over breakfast, watching her stare at her screen for the dozenth time that morning. "What? Oh yes, fine, just some weird app glitches." She set the phone down too quickly, screen side down. Another tell. Marcus sipped his coffee, hiding his satisfaction behind the rim of his mug. According to Derek's texts, the package had arrived in Vancouver, and his friend, bless his chaotic soul, was about to take it on a road trip to visit his girlfriend in Whitehorse, Yukon. The tracker was currently showing up somewhere near the Canadian border, moving steadily north. That evening, Emma barely touched her dinner. "I have to run to the store," she announced abruptly, grabbing her keys. "Now? It's almost 8. I need some things. For tomorrow." She was already halfway to the door. Marcus waited 5 minutes after she left, then checked the doorbell camera app on his phone. Emma had parked down the street and was sitting in her car, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. Even without audio, her panic was evident. His phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Dude, this is hilarious. Where did you tell her you were going? I'm passing signs for the Yukon now. This tracker thing is making my road trip feel like a spy mission." Marcus texted back, "Don't ask questions. Just keep moving. I'll explain everything when this is over." When Emma returned home 40 minutes later, her eyes were red. "The store was crowded," she muttered, though she carried no bags. Over the next 2 days, Marcus watched his wife unravel. She called in sick to work, a first in their entire marriage. She stopped eating properly. She made excuse after excuse to leave the house, only to return looking more distressed than before. On day 5, Marcus found her in their bedroom, crying into her hands, her phone on the bed beside her showing what looked like a messaging app. "Emma, what's going on? Talk to me." He sat beside her, and despite everything, part of him still hoped for an innocent explanation. She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Nothing. I'm just stressed about work. You called in sick all week." "It's complicated." Marcus took a breath. "Is there something you need to tell me?" For a moment, he thought she might confess. Her mouth opened, words seemed to form on her lips. But then her phone buzzed and she grabbed it with desperate speed. Her face fell as she read the message. "I need some space," she said finally. "Maybe I'll stay at my sister's for a few days." "Your sister's in Florida. Then a hotel." "I just need to think," Marcus nodded slowly. "Whatever you need." That night, alone in their house for the first time in months, Marcus sat in the dark living room, his own phone glowing in his hand. Derek had sent photos from Whitehorse, stunning mountain vistas, the tracker device propped up in various tourist locations like a tiny, sinister travel companion. His laptop was open to his email, where 3 divorce attorneys had sent consultation availability. He hadn't expected it to hurt this much, the confirmation of what he'd already known. The marriage was over. Emma had betrayed him, was still betraying him apparently, with someone who'd caused her to panic when she thought Marcus had driven to the Yukon. But the hurt was mixed with something else, a cold, analytical curiosity. Who was the other person? Why had Emma's desperation peaked as the tracker moved further north? And why, when he checked their joint bank account out of thoroughness, had he found 3 large withdrawals over the past month, totaling nearly $15,000, that Emma had never mentioned? Marcus closed the laptop. Tomorrow, Derek would start his journey back to Vancouver. The tracker would begin its return trip, and Marcus would finally get his answers. His phone buzzed. "Emma, I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk when I'm ready?" Marcus stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere," but in his mind, he added. Yet the tracker made it back to Vancouver after 10 days, and Emma returned home that same evening, looking haggard but composed, the kind of composure that comes from carefully rehearsed explanations. "I've been thinking," she started, setting her overnight bag by the door. "Maybe we should try counseling. I've been under a lot of pressure and I haven't been fair to you." Marcus sat on the couch, outwardly calm. "Okay, what kind of pressure?" Emma's carefully constructed mask slipped slightly. "Just work, life. Marriage is hard sometimes." "Is that why you put a tracker on my car?" The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's face went through a series of expressions: shock, denial, panic, before settling on resignation. She sank into the chair across from him, her hands trembling. "How did you know?" "Found it 3 weeks ago. Mailed it to Canada as a joke. Funny thing happened, though. You started acting like someone who'd lost something very important." Marcus leaned forward. "So here's what I can't figure out. If you were tracking me to see if I was cheating, you would have been relieved when you thought I drove to the Yukon. But you weren't relieved, Emma. You were terrified." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." The story came out in broken pieces. Emma had met someone 7 months ago, Blake, a sales consultant who'd contracted with her company. It started innocently, she insisted. Coffee meetings, shared complaints about spouses who worked too much, who didn't understand. Then drinks, then a hotel room. "I wasn't trying to track you," Emma whispered. "Blake was..." He was getting possessive. He wanted to know you weren't suspicious, that you weren't following me or—" She broke off, crying harder. "He said we needed to be careful, that if you found out, you'd take everything in the divorce. He wanted to make sure you were clueless and predictable." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "The $15,000? Emma's head snapped up. "How? Our joint account, Emma. How did you think I wouldn't notice?" He kept his voice level, though inside he was screaming. "Let me guess. Blake needed money, investment opportunity, family emergency." His business was struggling. He said once he got back on his feet, we could be together properly. He just needed help to bridge the gap. And when the tracker showed me driving to Canada, Emma's face crumpled. "Blake thought you'd found out somehow. That you were running or confronting his wife. Yes, he has a wife, or I don't know what." He panicked. He stopped answering my calls. Blocked my number. When I went to his apartment, he was gone. The office said he'd resigned. Just disappeared. Marcus stood and walked to the window, his back to her. The neighborhood looked peaceful in the evening light. Kids playing basketball across the street. Mrs. Chen watering her garden. Normal life, continuing while his imploded. You gave him $15,000 of our money we'd saved for the down payment on a house, to a man who convinced you to spy on your own husband. Marcus, I'm sorry. I was stupid and selfish and where are the divorce papers I need to sign? He turned to face her. Because that's where we're at, right? You were planning to leave me anyway. No. I mean, I thought about it, but after Blake left, I realized. You realized you needed a backup plan, Marcus finished. Blake ghosts you, takes your money, and suddenly you remember you have a husband who's never lied to you, never cheated, never stolen from you. How convenient. Emma stood, reaching for him. It's not like that. When I thought you'd gone to Canada, when I couldn't reach you, I was terrified. Not about Blake or the money, but about losing you. I realized what I'd destroyed. Marcus stepped back from her outstretched hand. You were terrified because you thought I'd discovered your affair and was confronting your lover. Don't rewrite history, Emma, please. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but we can work through this. We can— No, Marcus said quietly. We can't. You chose someone else. You stole from our future. You violated my trust in the most fundamental way, and you only want to work through this because your affair partner abandoned you. Emma sank back into the chair, sobbing. Marcus watched her dispassionately, remembering the woman he'd married or thought he'd married. Where had she gone? When had she been replaced by this stranger who'd gambled their marriage on a man who'd played her from the start? You can stay here tonight, Marcus said. Tomorrow you find somewhere else. I'll be filing for divorce on Monday. Marcus, please. Emma, stop. His voice cracked finally, the emotion breaking through. Just stop. You don't get to do this to me and then expect me to save you from the consequences. He walked out of the room, leaving her crying in the chair, and locked himself in the guest bedroom. Only then, alone in the dark, did Marcus let himself break. 2 months later, Marcus sat in his attorney's office reviewing the divorce settlement papers. Emma had signed everything without contest. She'd even agreed to repay the $15,000 from her separate inheritance fund, though Marcus suspected she was more motivated by guilt than generosity. She's not fighting any of it, his attorney, Rachel Kim, observed. That's unusual in these cases. Most people get defensive, especially when they're caught in an affair. Marcus shrugged. I think she knows she destroyed everything. What's there to fight for? But the truth was more complicated. Emma had been calling, texting, showing up at the house at odd hours, trying to explain or apologize or beg for another chance. Marcus had been civil but firm. The marriage was over. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven, shouldn't be forgiven. His phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. Can we please talk? I have something important to tell you. Rachel noticed his expression. You should consider a restraining order if she's harassing you. She's not harassing me. She's just lost. Marcus pocketed the phone without responding. She threw away a good life for a con artist. And now she's trying to undo a decision that can't be undone. What Rachel didn't know, what Marcus barely admitted to himself, was that he still checked Emma's social media sometimes, still wondered how someone he'd loved could have become so unrecognizable. Her recent post showed a woman unraveling. Cryptic quotes about regret, photos with forced smiles, desperate inspirational messages about second chances. Derek had called last week from Vancouver. Hey man, remember that tracker adventure? I've been meaning to ask, what was that about? Marcus had told him everything. Derek had whistled low. Jesus, Marcus. I'm sorry, but hey, at least you found out before you bought that house together, right? Could have been a lot messier. It could have been messier. It was still pretty messy. Marcus learned through mutual friends that Emma had lost her job. The affair with Blake had violated company policy, and when everything came to light, she'd been quietly asked to resign. She'd moved in with her sister in Florida temporarily, though from the sound of it, that arrangement was strained. Blake, meanwhile, had been a ghost. Marcus had done some digging, more than was probably healthy, and discovered Blake Morrison wasn't even his real name. He'd scammed at least 3 other women in similar ways over the past 5 years, always disappearing before consequences caught up with him. Marcus had passed the information to the police, but without Emma willing to file a formal complaint, there wasn't much they could do. One evening, Marcus was packing Emma's remaining belongings. She'd been too distraught to collect everything before leaving, when he found her journal tucked in the back of her nightstand drawer. He shouldn't have opened it. He knew he shouldn't have, but he did. The entries from the past year painted a picture he hadn't fully understood. Emma had felt neglected, taken for granted, invisible. Marcus worked long hours on his engineering projects, often coming home exhausted and distracted. She'd tried to talk to him about it, the journal claimed, but he'd always promised to do better without actually changing. Then Blake had appeared, showering her with attention, making her feel seen and desired. The journal detailed their affair with painful honesty. The excitement, the guilt, the gradual realization that Blake was using her. By the time Emma understood what was happening, she'd already invested too much emotional and financial capital to walk away easily. The final entries were devastating. I thought Marcus was boring, predictable, safe. I wanted excitement, passion, unpredictability. Now I have none of those things. Now I just have regret. Blake is gone and I destroyed the one person who actually loved me. Marcus was right. I only want him back because I lost everything else. What kind of person does that make me? Marcus closed the journal and sat on the edge of the bed. He felt a complicated mixture of emotions. Anger at Emma's betrayal, but also a reluctant understanding of how they drifted apart. He hadn't been a perfect husband, too focused on work, taking their relationship for granted, assuming Emma's happiness without actually checking. But understanding wasn't the same as forgiveness. And empathy didn't erase betrayal. His phone rang. Emma's name appeared on the screen. He answered this time. Marcus. Her voice was small, fragile. Thank you for picking up. What do you need, Emma? I don't need anything. I just wanted to tell you that I signed the final papers. My attorney sent them today. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that expects forgiveness or wants you back. Just sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. Marcus was silent for a moment. We both could have been better. No, Emma said firmly. Don't do that. Don't take responsibility for my choices. You weren't perfect, but you didn't cheat. You didn't steal. You didn't destroy 8 years of marriage because you were bored or selfish or stupid. That was all me. Emma, I just needed you to know that I understand what I lost. I understand that you were the real thing. And Blake was a fantasy that cost me everything. And I'm going to have to live with that. But I hope you find someone who appreciates what I was too blind to see. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat in the empty bedroom, Emma's journal in his hands, and felt something shift inside him. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of letting go. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus sold the house. Too many memories haunted its rooms and he needed a fresh start. He moved into a downtown loft, closer to his engineering firm, and started rebuilding a life that looked nothing like his married one. He dated casually, nothing serious, just relearning what it meant to connect with someone new. He traveled to Vancouver to finally visit Derek in person, and they spent a week hiking and laughing about the absurd tracker saga that had revealed everything. You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found it? Derek asked one night over beers. Marcus considered this. I would have found out eventually. Emma was unraveling and Blake would have disappeared regardless. Maybe I would have discovered it months later or walked in on them or she would have confessed. The tracker just accelerated the inevitable. Do you regret how it went down? The Canada thing? No, Marcus said honestly. It gave me control in a situation where I'd been completely powerless. Emma was managing me, manipulating me, stealing from me. The tracker let me flip the script, even if just for a few days. He hadn't heard from Emma directly in 3 months, though. Mutual friends said she was doing better. She'd found a new job in Florida, started therapy, was slowly rebuilding her life. Marcus was glad in an abstract way. He didn't wish her suffering, even if he never wanted to see her again. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, Marcus received a package with no return address. Inside was the GPS tracker, the same one he'd mailed to Derek nearly a year ago, along with a letter in Emma's handwriting. Marcus, Derek sent me this after I asked if he still had it. I wanted you to have it back, along with a complete explanation. The truth I should have told you from the beginning, but was too ashamed to admit. Blake contacted me 2 weeks before you found the tracker. He'd gotten spooked, convinced you were suspicious. He demanded I keep tabs on your location to ensure you weren't investigating him or planning to confront his wife. The tracker was his idea. He bought it and I planted it like an idiot. When the tracker showed you driving to Canada, Blake went into full panic mode. He thought you'd somehow discovered his real identity. Did you know he's used at least 5 different names? I didn't, not until after. He thought you were going to his wife or the police or I don't know what. So he ran. He cleaned out the offshore account where he'd deposited my money, along with money from at least 4 other women, changed his identity again, and disappeared. I'm not telling you this to excuse what I did. I'm telling you because you deserve the complete truth about who I became and why. I let a con artist convince me to betray you. I chose excitement over stability, fantasy over reality, and lies over trust. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too broken and selfish to appreciate what I had. Therapy has helped me understand that I was looking for external validation to fill an internal void. You weren't responsible for my happiness, but I blamed you anyway. I convinced myself you were the problem when I was the one who stopped communicating, stopped trying, stopped being a partner. I know you've moved on, and you should. You deserve someone who sees your worth, who doesn't take your steadiness for granted, who understands that real love isn't about constant excitement. It's about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other even when it's hard. The tracker in this box represents the worst decision I ever made. But in a strange way, I'm grateful you found it and did what you did. You could have confronted me immediately, could have exploded in anger, could have made the divorce vindictive and cruel. Instead, you gave me exactly enough rope to hang myself while you watched with calm clarity. That's who you are, Marcus. Thoughtful, strategic, controlled even when you're hurting. I never appreciated those qualities until I lost them. I'm not asking for forgiveness or hoping we can be friends. I just needed you to know that I understand finally what I threw away. And I hope wherever you are, whoever you're with, you're happier than you were with me. You were always going to Canada in the ways that mattered, moving forward, exploring new horizons, refusing to stay stuck. I'm the one who stayed trapped in lies and delusion and fear. Thank you for 8 years of patience I didn't deserve. And I'm sorry it took losing you to find myself. Emma. Marcus read the letter twice, then set it aside with the tracker. He walked to his loft's floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city lights, feeling something release in his chest. The last knot of anger and hurt finally loosening. His phone rang. Jessica, an architect he'd been seeing for 2 months, was calling to confirm their dinner plans. They talked easily, laughed at a shared joke, made plans for the weekend. It wasn't love yet, but it was honest. It was real. It was built on truth instead of deception. After hanging up, Marcus picked up the tracker one more time. Such a small device to have changed everything. He thought about mailing it somewhere else. Antarctica, perhaps, or Tokyo. One last journey for the little black box that had exposed so much. But instead, he dropped it in the trash. Some journeys were over. Some truths once found didn't need to be tracked anymore. Marcus grabbed his keys and headed out to meet Jessica, leaving the past in a garbage can where it belonged, stepping into a future that was uncertain but entirely his own. For the first time in a year, he felt like himself again. Not the husband who'd been betrayed, not the man who'd been made a fool, but just Marcus, engineer, friend, someone learning to trust again. The tracker had shown him where his wife had been going, emotionally if not physically, but more importantly, it had shown him where he needed to go. Away from manipulation and toward authenticity, away from broken trust and toward new beginnings. As Marcus stepped into the elevator, his phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Hey, remember that tracker? Still think about that road trip. Craziest favor anyone's ever asked me. How's life treating you?" Marcus smiled and typed back, "Life is good, man. Thanks for the assist. I owe you big time." "Nah," Derek replied. "You gave me a great story and helped me realize my own relationship was solid. Win-win. Besides, that tracker got more stamps on its passport than I did." Marcus laughed out loud, drawing curious looks from the other elevator passenger. He didn't care. For the first time in a long time, the future felt like something to laugh about, something to anticipate, something worth tracking toward. The tracker had exposed Emma's lies, but in the end it had led Marcus to the only truth that mattered. He deserved better, and better was exactly what he was going to find. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Marcus walked out into the evening air, free.